What is attachment science and why it is absolutely critical to understand it if you are trying to make any romantic relationship work, whether you're in the dating phase or a long-term marriage. I'm Dr. Sarah Hensley. I'm a specialized social psychologist, and I've been studying the science of attachment and attraction inside romantic relationships for nearly 20 years, and this is another edition of Carline Relationship Advice. The first thing to understand is that psychologists, particularly with a PhD, okay, PsyDs are more clinically oriented, PhDs are going to be more research oriented. Psychologists are very rigorously trained researchers, meaning that we have to take lots and lots of classwork in graduate school around research methodology, statistics, the science of assessments, of building assessments. So we are not just sitting back in a big chair and sipping coffee and making stuff up. That's not what's happening here. So the science of attachment has been around since the 1950s, and it has been empirically validated and yet to be falsified in this amount of time, okay, since it was first introduced. So it's been studied across cultures, across gender, across different types of relationships. And all we've been able to do is not disprove that our earliest childhood experiences with our caregivers significantly predict our adult relationship behavior. We've not yet falsified that, so therefore it is still a standing theory that has lots and lots of empirical support behind it, but it does so very well that now social media has caught on, and it is a trending topic across social media. Good for me, right? As somebody who's been studying it for 20 years. And it does such an amazing job of predicting why people do what they do inside of relationships. It predicts not only behavior, but it predicts people's emotions inside of relationships, their biggest needs, their biggest desires, but also their biggest wounds and their biggest, deepest triggers inside of relationships and how that influences one's behavior. Every single day, I have people come to me and said, oh my gosh, we've been in couples counseling for literally 20 years, and you described our relationship problem in one 3-minute video, and now like everything from our 20-year relationship makes total sense. That is how good attachment science is. And if it wasn't that good, it would not have stood the test of time. So scientists operate based on what we call the principle of falsifiability. True scientists don't use the word prove, okay? In fact, true scientists don't say science is settled. It's just that's counterintuitive to the process of science. So we usually just say, okay, well, this thing has yet to be falsified. And let me give you an example of that. So a long time ago, and this comes from the show Friends, if you guys ever watched that, we thought the atom was the smallest form of matter. And then we bought that into that theory, right? And we had it for a long time. But then somebody came along and split open that atom, and all the things came out, and they measured all the different particles. And so that is an example of falsifying the theory that the atom was the smallest form of matter. So theories stay in place until we have falsifiability, okay? And the more evidence that supports the theory, it just makes the theory stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, and probably less likely that it's going to end up being falsified. And so we don't say, well, we can prove this or we can prove that. We just say there's no evidence yet to disprove that. And the fact that attachment science has been around so long, and there has been, maybe even hundreds of thousands, definitely tens of thousands, but maybe even hundreds of thousands of articles, research, empirical peer-reviewed articles on attachment, which keeps its core fundamental principles, that our earliest childhood experiences absolutely predict our adult romantic relationship behaviors, has not been disproven. And there are a lot of people, especially on this app, that are either undercomplicating attachment because they're truly not familiar with the research, or they're overcomplicating attachment because they're trying to use too much of their own clinical experience and their own small population of clients treated. Therapists treat way fewer clients than coaches do because coaching is a much shorter process. Okay, so therapists generally have a very small, what we would call sample size, that they are like making these clinical inferences from. And I see some people doing this on that app, and they're giving lots of overcomplicated information because their sample size is so small. And when you have a small sample size, you're going to see more variability. But when you have a very large sample size, like a lot of these empirical studies have, then we see the real trends, right? And we see the real variables that we should be focusing on and studying. And that is something that I do as a research scientist. I go to the research and to the science. Do I use my expertise as a coach and things that I've experienced, sure, to work in that, but it doesn't supersede years and years of empirical science. So, all of that being said, if you know someone's attachment style, it is like having the key to getting inside their head. And it is really, really, really helpful in becoming the type of romantic relationship partner you want to be when you start to recognize your own attachment patterns. And it makes it a lot easier to make a relationship work with someone who has a different attachment blueprint with you when you can understand where their blueprint is coming from and having empathy for them. So if you would like to work with me and to understand your attachment and the attachment of someone else that you love and care about to make a relationship work, you can see me at my website, thedatingdecoder.com.